When someone says he is Dhu Yadin, he is a possessor of power. Although literally it says he is a possessor of a hand. Dhu Yadin means possessor of a hand. But in Arabic, when you're saying someone has power, they are a possessor of power. You mentioned the word Yad because Yad is where power is held. He is the possessor of power. In addition to that, the word basira or absar, insights, means not just the human eye, it can also mean the inner light, as well as insightful understanding. So it's not all one thing. These words don't carry one standard meaning. Sometimes they carry more than that meaning. More than that meaning. Now, an additional point that needs to be said. When we look at the Salafi translations of the Qur'an, they translate that passage in Surah Sad exactly as how it says. Men of power and insight. Now what's odd is they do not hold those passages to be haqiqah when they're talking about human beings. But they told them to be haqiqah when they speak about Allah. Does everyone understand what I've said? They hold them to be literal when they're speaking about Allah. They've got to be literal human hands like how we understand them. But when they're speaking about the prophets, as in this passage, no, it doesn't mean that, it means something else. That is odd, because Allah is more deserving of being glorified above this. Now, after saying that, the next question that comes to our mind is, how should we believe in these passages when we read them then? How should we believe? That's a good question. And that's why we want to answer that as best we can. And we try to go to the orthodox sources. One of the first ones is Imam Malik. Imam Malik rahimahullah says, quote, "Whoever recites the hand of Allah and indicates his own hand, or recites the eye of Allah and indicates that organ of his, let it be cut off to discipline him concerning the transcendence beyond what he has compared him to, and above his own comparison to him. Both his life and limb he compared to Allah are cut off." Closed quote. This is taken from Ahkam al-Qur'an, volume 4, page 1740. Imam Malik is drawing our attention to this. The fact that he says, when someone compares their hand to Allah's hand, and he said, let it be cut off, or their eye to Allah's eye, and let it be taken out, is the fact that he is saying that Allah cannot be compared to His creation in any manner. There is no comparing. So mutashabihat are just that. They are mutashabihat. They're not literal. Just leave them on their way as they are, those verses. Right? Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah, he says a further thing. Because when someone holds these passages to be literal, then of course they jump and they make the unwarranted qualification of saying Allah has a body, a literal body as humans have. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah says about this. He says, quote, "The names of things are taken from the Sharia and the Arabic language. The language's possessors have used this word jism, body, for something that has height, breadth, thickness, construction, form, and composition, while Allah Most High is beyond all of that, and may not be termed a body, because of being beyond being embodied. This has not been conveyed by the Sharia, and so it is refuted." Closed quote. This is taken from Al-Barahin Al-Sati'ah, page 164. So, what we need to understand is this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the language when you use this type of wording, Allah is free from that. He is free from that. Additionally, Imam Abdul Qahir al-Baghdadi rahimahullah warns. This is actually a warning that he gave. He says, quote, "As for those who liken Allah to His creation in Khurasan, the Karramiyah, it is obligatory to consider them kuffar, unbelievers, because they affirm that Allah has a physical limit and boundary from underneath, from where He is in contact with His throne." Closed quote. Taken from Usul ut-Tafsir, page 337. What he is stating is that Allah is not in need of limits, He is not in need of boundaries, and He is not in need of any of the things that we would ascribe to Him in terms of being human attributes. Now this may seem very trivial to us, but the quotes we read before obviously show that it's not a belief that is held by everyone. Even though we all say that we are Muslims. So we need to look carefully at the arguments that some use so we understand and don't fall into the same blasphemy. Imam Abdul Ghani al-Nabusi rahimahullah, he says, quote, "Whoever believes that Allah fills the skies and the earth, or that He possesses a body sitting above His throne, then he is a kafir, even though he claims he is a Muslim." Close quote. Al-Fath al-Rabbani, page 124. So this is a severe matter. Because to hold that Allah possesses these attributes, these human attributes, is to hold that Allah is a man. I'll explain briefly before I carry on. Up until the period of Maimonides, or Moshe ben Maimun, the famous Jewish rabbi, the Jews believed just that about Allah. They believed just that. But when Moshe ben Maimun, the famous Jewish rabbi, came into the presence of the Orthodox scholars, and they debated with him, they said, "You worship a God no different than a man like yourselves then." And the Orthodox scholars, really, they put a hurting on him, theologically. And he realized, after he attended some of the Islamic schools around there, although not converting from Judaism to Islam, he realized that there's a point to what the Orthodox Muslims are saying. Because you can't hold these things literally and go on saying you believe in an unlimited, unboundaried God. So he was the first one in Judaism to say, no, the attributes, how God describes Himself, are not literal. He was the first one to do that. He was the first one to say that God is not in need of His creation. And when you read his books and compare them with the Orthodox books, they almost mirror back to front. But when you read before him, the Jews have a very anthropomorphic, humanizing picture of who Allah is. How Muslims are taught who Allah is something that is unique and beyond any other religious system, cult, or system. It really is amazing. Because it's not just about monotheism, it's about unicity. Completely different, a Lord that is completely other than His creation. Imam ibn Hajar al-Haythami, rahimahullah, he said, quote, "You should know that Qurafi and others have related from Shafi'i, Malik, Ahmed, and Abu Hanifa the statement in which they proclaim the kufr of those speaking of direction and having a body for Allah, and on this statement they are agreed on that." Close quote. This is taken from Al-Hadramiyah, page 224. We continue with what Imam Muwafiquddin rahimahullah, who we are very familiar with. We continue with what he has stated. He says, quote, "So their words, we believe in it, are proof on a type of tafweed, consignment, and submission to something that they are not able to know its meaning." Close quote. This is taken from Rawdatul Nadir wa Junnatul Munadir, volume 1, pages 215 to 216. What the Imam is saying is that when the people read the passages, the proper Orthodox Muslims read those passages, they say, we believe in them. Whether they know what it means or not, we believe in them. And this is what is called tafweed. This is called tafweed. Tafweed is the principle that Orthodox Muslims use when we speak about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His attributes. So when we read about Allah, when He says that He has hands, when He says that He does istiwa, when He says and affirms a hand, we believe in those, and then we attribute the meaning of that to Allah. What that means is we say, we know it's not human limbs, we know that. We know it's not anything like His creation, it's not a human hand, it's not a human eye, it's not a human limb. Allah is not in need of any of those things. They are attributes of Allah, and we believe in them just as we believe in the other attributes of Allah, like speaking. We know that Allah, He speaks and He reveals revelation, yet He doesn't need a mouth, tongue, orifice, larynx, or any of those to convey revelation. Right? Imam Muwafiquddin rahimahullah says further, quote, "And whatever of that appears ambiguous to us, it is compulsory on us to establish the text and leave seeking its meaning and returning knowledge of it to the speaker, and we make the responsibility of its meaning go to the one that related it." Close quote. Taken from Lum'at al-I'tiqad, page 5. So, he is saying that what we do not know, we attribute the meaning to Allah. Likewise, he says in another statement, quote, "And we believe in Him without boundary and without limit." Close quote. Lum'at al-I'tiqad, page 6. Now from all of this, we can take the following points into mind. The first point is, whatever Allah has said of His attributes, we accept them. When we read the verses, we affirm the attributes. We affirm them. The second thing, when we read them, we pass the text by because they are mutashabihat. We don't say anything further on them. We pass them by. Number three, we attribute the meaning of those attributes to Allah, not knowing the reality or what Allah has intended by them for Himself. Number four, one thing we do know is that they are not literal as we understand them, as Allah is not human, nor are humans Allah. Therefore, we do not fall into the evil of letterism. And in finishing this section, Imam Ahmed has a beautiful quote in page 6 of Lum'at al-I'tiqad, which I didn't include here, where he says, we believe in them, we affirm them, without how and without meaning. So Imam Ahmed doesn't describe, he says that we don't describe how the attributes are, and we don't describe what they mean. We say they're attributes. Just as Allah speaks without need of having a tongue, orifice, tonsils, or teeth. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees without need of an iris, a pupil, or sclera. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears without need of a conchlea, an eardrum, or an ear canal. We believe in that. We believe in that. Now, we come to our next point, which is called historical anachronism, or what I put in Arabic, غلط في تسلسل تواريخ الحوادث, which is historical anachronism in Arabic. This is where someone takes something. They actually take something, a period of time or a point. They take something that exists in their own time. And when quoting past events, they insert it into a time when the thing did not exist. I'll give you some ridiculous examples. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah enjoyed the taste of Kentucky Fried Chicken over that of Imam's Fried Chicken in some 3 different taste tests done with him. What's wrong with this passage? What's wrong with it? There was no Kentucky Fried Chicken or Imam's Fried Chicken in the time of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah. That's right. Right? Here's a second example. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah used to sit with his qadis on an issue. He would have an assistant type up the minutes of the meeting. What's wrong with that? No typewriter, right? Movable type came nearly 1,000 years later. Right? Here's the next one, which is equally outlandish. It says, when King Herod, the ruler of Judea in the 1st century, was diagnosed with variant CJD at Whittington Hospital in London, he was devastated. Now what's wrong with this? Right. No Whittington Hospital, no variant CJD as far as we know, and no London in 1st century Judea. So, if you guessed all these, of course it's obvious that these are historical anachronisms. Right? Historical anachronisms. Just the same as if you saw a picture of King Arthur and Tony Blair shaking hands. You would know, if King Arthur existed in fact, you would know that that is a historical anachronism. Now, we have historical anachronisms amongst those who would call Orthodox Muslims out of their faith into their organization. And you need to be aware of this and to be vigilant. Take this example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ, by the one witnessing and the one witnessed to. Surah Al-Buruj, the 4th ayah. Now, look at what Mirza Tahir Ahmed, the leader of the Ahmadiyya World Faith Community, look at what he says about the passage. He says, quote, but here, as the text above shows, the Shahid is the promised Messiah, and the Mashhud is the Holy Prophet. And the verse signifies that the promised Messiah will bear witness to the truth of the Holy Prophets by his speeches, discourses, and writings, and by the signs that God will show at his hands. He will also bear witness in the sense that in his person, the prophecy of the Holy Prophet about the appearance of the promised Messiah and the Mahdi in the 14th century AH will be fulfilled. The promised Messiah is also Mashhud in the sense that the Holy Prophet himself has borne witness to his truth. Thus the Holy Prophet and the promised Messiah are both shahids, bearers of witness, and mashhoods to whom witness is borne. Close quote. This is taken from the Holy Qur'aan, Arabic text with English translation and short commentary, page 1248. Now, Who is the promised Messiah?